Today, the twisted love triangle that led to the murder of a Marine's wife. This is Erin, a shy, small-town girl from Tennessee. Described as the animal whisperer by family and friends, she was gentle, with a big heart and kind blue eyes. She loved horses. Erin first met John at a neighborhood barn. At only 16, John asked her parents' permission to take her on her very first date. After graduation, he enlisted in the service, and she would become a young Marine's wife. But Erin's fairy tale romance would soon become riddled with secrets. Secrets that would end in her disappearance in California's largest desert. Take a look. 142 miles east of Los Angeles, the last stop on Highway 62 is military base 29 Palms. It's where 19-year-old Erin and her Marine husband John Corwin settled after eloping. The newlyweds rented an apartment in a complex just like this and became fast friends with their next-door neighbors, Nicole and Chris. The couple spent endless hours together, according to Erin's mom.
Sometimes they would be up, the couples would be up the majority of the night, and then they'd make breakfast together.
And then Erin got some wonderful news. She was pregnant. She proudly announced it on Facebook, which made it all the more devastating, her mom said, when she miscarried.
Part of me wanted to go out there, but I also didn't want to overstep my bounds. They needed that time to work together.
But Erin thought John wasn't sympathetic enough and started to withdraw from him. To help with her depression, Erin spent a lot of time here, a rescue horse ranch located near the military base. She often rode horses with her new friends, Nicole and Chris. But the owner of the ranch noticed that Erin and Chris were getting extremely close. And she was right. Erin and Chris were having a romantic affair. Ultimately, the affair was exposed, and shockingly, John forgave his wife and Chris.
John decided he was going to work through the marriage and work through this.
And then, some good news. Erin found out she was pregnant again.
Erin told John that she was going to wait and tell her mom in person.
So on the morning of June 28, 2014, Erin came here, the Joshua Tree National Park. She told John she was scouting places to bring her mother. And the man she was having an affair with, Chris, was supposed to be at the same park that day on a hunting trip. Later, Chris came home, but Erin never did. The police had two suspects, her husband, John, and her boyfriend, Chris. Best-selling true crime journalist and author of Secrets of a Marine's Wife, Shanna Hogan, is here. She spent years in the front lines of this story, interviewing Erin's family or friends, poring over court records. She knows this story inside out. Shanna, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Give me a snapshot into the two men in Erin's life. Let's start with her husband, John. What kind of a person was he? Describe him to us.
Yeah, John was a really quiet, reserved guy. He didn't really express his emotions. And Erin was obviously the horse whisperer type girl, where she connected more with horses than she did with people. So that really bonded them and brought them together. He had early aspirations of joining the Marines, and about a year after he joined the Marines, Erin joined him in 29 Palms. And I don't think she was prepared really for how military life really hardened him. They faced financial struggles in the beginning, and of course, the biggest wedge that drove them apart was when she had her miscarriage.
Yeah. And he wasn't there for her, I guess.
He just wasn't able to really express the same level of grief that she was, and that kind of drew them apart.
So let's go back to that love triangle again. The other part of it is Chris, with whom Erin had an affair. So how was the affair exposed?
Yes. Well, Nicole, Chris's wife, started to get very suspicious of the time that Chris was spending with his next door neighbor. And so one night she took the memory card from his cell phone and put it into her computer and was able to see all these messages that Chris had kept hidden from her. And everyone knew, sadly, except for John. And then one night, they were all getting together for a cookout, and Nicole, Chris's wife, confronted John and told them about the affair, and a big blow-up fight ensued, and it ended with Nicole chasing after Erin, saying, "If you ever have anything to do with my husband again, I'll kill you myself."
So after the affair, I guess, supposedly ended, What was the state of each of the marriage? Were they able to get back together again?
Chris and Nicole were, Chris was about to be honorably discharged from the Marines, and so he told Nicole he wanted to work it out. He went through counseling, and they were set to return back to Anchorage, Alaska, where he was going to go back to school and she would raise their daughter. At the same time, next door, John had forgiven Erin. They decided that they were going to work through it, and they seemed pretty happy. And then Erin found out she was pregnant again, and
good.
that was something that John was very happy about. He called his dad and said, "You're going to be a grandpa." And Erin decided to wait 1 week to tell her mom in person.
So let's go to the day that Erin disappeared. What was she doing in the desert that day? Why had she gone out there?
Erin had told John that she was leaving. She was going to Joshua Tree National Park to scout out scenic locations to take her mom during that upcoming visit. At the same time, coincidentally, supposedly, Chris was heading out to that same park, Joshua Tree National Park, for a coyote hunting trip with his downstairs neighbor. But the odd thing about it was once he had got to the desert, his neighbor tried to call him several times, and Chris had turned his phone into airplane mode. He texted. He spent like 3 hours looking for Chris. And that night, Chris came home, and Erin never did.
So the plot thickens.
Yes.
Up next, Erin's mom, Laura, is going to join us. Plus, a bombshell police interview with Erin's best friend from home reveals something that no one else knew about what happened that day in the desert. Stay with us. I love you, Mom. These were the last 4 words Laura Hevelin heard from her daughter before she received the phone call. A phone call no parent should ever have to get. Her 19-year-old daughter, Erin, a Marine's wife, had gone missing in a desert in California after supposedly scouting places to bring her mom on an upcoming visit. And she would soon learn it was a secret affair that led to her daughter's murder. Now, Laura joins us via Zoom. Laura, I know this is hard to talk about, and thank you for being here. Erin was not only a Marine's wife, she was the daughter you fell so much in love with that you decided to adopt her after taking her in as a foster child. What kind of person was she?
Erin was very shy, and she, even as a baby, if someone came up to talk to her and she didn't know them, she'd kind of give them a drop-dead look. But she was an animal whisperer, and animals could pull her out of her little reserved self.
So how did you learn about Erin's disappearance? And what was going through your head when you found out?
Erin's husband, John, called us about 11 o'clock that Sunday morning, the 29th of June, and he had asked me if I had heard from Erin. I'm like, no, not. We had talked on Friday. I had texted her on Saturday, and she did not respond, which was kind of strange because we texted in, at least daily, and talked on the phone quite a bit. Then he told me that she was missing, and I'm like, what do you mean she's missing? And then he told me that, she had gone out to the desert to look for places for us to take pictures and stuff when I got there, and she never came home.
It's sad. I know it's even to talk about it now is painful. When you found out about Erin having an affair, you thought it was extremely out of character for her. What do you think led her to that point, and how do you think it was connected, if at all, to her disappearance?
I still have a hard time wrapping my mind around that because that's just out of character for her. But I just felt like, she was going through depression. I felt like maybe John didn't know what to do to help her through that. And honestly, having lost 2 daughters, my husband and I certainly did not grieve the same way. And being 19 and 20 years old, I think it just somehow, some way, they just could not be there for each other the way each other needed. And so I feel like she found someone that was going to comfort her and quote unquote said that he understood her. And And I just feel like he used that as a manipulation to gradually pull her towards him.
So at this point, you're at home, you're on the phone, you've heard this, you're dealing with two big issues. Your daughter's missing and the knowledge she had in an affair. The police have two lead suspects. Erin's husband, John, who you just spoken to on the phone, who took a whole day to report his pregnant wife was missing. And we have Chris, the man she had an affair with. When the man you say pulled Erin, your daughter, towards him, who also went to the very same park the day of Erin's disappearance.
Yes.
Did you have any strong sentiments about either one of them at that point?
I never suspected John. I didn't know Chris, so I didn't have any way of knowing one way or another. I feel like when they found her vehicle without her near it or in it, that's when I knew that something had happened to her.
Laura, thank you very much for sharing something that's so raw to you. I appreciate it. So let me show all of you a police interview with Erin's best friend from home. Her name is Jessie. He revealed a secret that will lead police to their suspect. It is recounted here in the podcast, Case Closed.
Jessie told the police the affair between Erin and Chris had never ended. Erin believed she was pregnant with Chris's baby.
When Erin found out she was pregnant, did she think it was Chris's, or did she think it might be John's?
She was pretty sure. She was like 90% sure it was Chris's.
And she told Chris right away?
I know she told him, because they were at one point talking about baby names.
Chris knew about the baby. And not only that, Erin told Jessie that Chris wanted to take her somewhere special as a surprise to celebrate her being pregnant. They planned to spend the whole day together. So when Erin went to Joshua Tree National Park on June 28th, she was planning to meet Chris. And on Monday, June 30th, the detectives found Erin's abandoned blue Corolla about 5 miles outside Joshua Tree.
Did police have their suspect? The answer is next. Plus, an inside look at the police interrogation tapes that involve a confession that you have to see to believe. We are back talking about how a twisted love triangle led to the murder of a Marine's wife, Erin Corwin. The police now have a lead suspect, Chris Lee, the possible father of her child from their secret affair. In this clip of his interrogation you're about to see, look what happened when police asked Chris if he had anything suspicious in his phone's search history. Take a look.
I was having a conversation with one of the guys in the duty that it came up randomly, random Marine talk, about the best way to dispose of the body.
And how long was that?
This is the last time I was on duty, so before I went on leave, probably just under a month ago.
What'd you search on?
We were using Google on my phone and his phone, I think.
That their phone?
Yes.
Okay. And what were the results? What did you find out?
Pigs.
Pigs?
Mm-hmm.
What does it say pigs do?
They eat them.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that. Cannibalism?
Mm-hmm.
Shocking, huh? Seems pretty clear. Chris searched for ways to dispose of a dead body on his phone. That was just a month prior to Erin's murder. True crime journalist Shanna Hogan is back, and the lawyer who prosecuted this case, Sean Doherty, is joining us via Zoom. So Shanna, the police at this point were convinced Chris was Erin's killer. Why did all the signs seem to point to him?
Well, first it was Chris's changing story. After they talked to Jessie, they knew that Chris was the one who intended to meet Erin out there in the desert that day. Then there was the evidence that was found in the mine shaft. Chris had borrowed a propane tank, and that was found at the bottom of the mine shaft along with Erin's body. Also, when he was arrested, they discovered that a homemade garrote in his mother's car, and it was almost identical to the one that was found wrapped around Erin's neck. Also, at the bottom of the mine shaft, there was some DNA evidence that was collected. There was a Sprite bottle that had Erin and Chris's DNA mixed. And then finally, it turns out that he was trying to incinerate her body. So he had made a homemade torch out of a Marine Corps t-shirt, and that had his DNA exclusively on it.
Oh, so the propane tank was to throw down there, and he was going to light it on fire remotely with that?
Yes, to try and incinerate her body.
Oh, my goodness. So, Sean, what made prosecuting a case against Chris so difficult when these facts seem so cut and dry?
Well, I think anytime in a criminal case I have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt to convince 12 people, cases really aren't cut and dry when you get to court. Initially, the challenge was when I first came onto the case or learned about the case was we didn't have a body, which leads to the suggestion she may have ran away. And when a body and when evidence is in the desert for that long, in such a harsh environment, evidence tends to be lost. For instance, there was no evidence that Erin was in fact pregnant because her body was too decomposed.
I see. So, Sean, the defense only called one witness to the stand, and that was Chris himself. Now, why was this defense sort of unusual? Why this tactic is not common?
Well, his defense essentially was that one night after his wife was giving his daughter a bath, they noticed some redness on the crotch area of their daughter. His wife, Chris Lee's wife, wondered aloud if, maybe Erin had caused that. He admitted to being in the desert with her that day, finally on the stand. He asked her, essentially the culminated in him asking her, did you touch my daughter? And did you molest my daughter? And he claims in his testimony that Erin said yes, but, and that's the last words he heard. What he was trying to convince the jury of was that he acted in a blind rage. So it's commonly called a crime of passion defense, but really it's a provocation, and you're provoked into this rage. So in that respect, it was not only unusual, it was, in my view, just disgusting for him to make that claim, knowing that she's not there to defend herself and knowing that all he had done to plan it and to even get to that point.
Just to be clear, everybody, Chris admitted that he approached Corwin from behind and strangled her for at least 5 minutes with a garrote made up of 2 pieces of rebar and a cord that looks like this. Now, Sean, I understand you brought a life-size dummy into the court to show this murder was premeditated and deliberate. And if you could recount that to our audience, I would appreciate it, because it was vital in the ultimate decision of the jury.
Sure. As I said, I had some indication that he was going to go with, well, I did it, but I was provoked. So I decided to bring a life-size dummy into court. I created a garrote on my own. And during cross-examination, I asked him to show us how he did it. And I used the dummy and put the garrote in his hands directly in front of the jurors. And he showed us how he did it there in front of her. So that's what I did. And I think it was effective in showing at any given moment he could have stopped, but he didn't, because he thought about life, he thought about death, and he chose to kill Erin.
Was his defense successful at all?
No. The jury found him guilty after about an hour and a half of first-degree murder, and they found the special circumstance of a lying in wait true. So lying in wait is essentially waited for an opportunity to act, and from a position of advantage killed the other person, in this case Erin.
So, Shanna, Chris has been honorably discharged from the Marines at this point. He's planning on returning to Alaska with his wife the week following that. Why just go up and run away? Why kill her? What was the point?
Yeah, at this point, he didn't want the responsibilities of paying child support. And it's really actually common that women who are killed by their lovers and their boyfriends, to get rid of the baby, to not have that responsibility and not have to take care of it.
Just to underline that, did you all hear that? Murder is a top cause. Among injury-related deaths, only car accidents are greater than murder for pregnant women. It's something I'd never thought of. It's unimaginable. And the prospect of a new child, particularly if the pregnancy is unwanted, not only brings down stress, it also represents a loss of control, which is what I suspect was really going on in Lee's mind. So if I can ask, what happened to Erin's husband, John? Where is he now? And also Chris's wife, Nicole.
Yeah, John was honorably discharged early from the Marines because of this tragedy, and he returned home to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where he went back to school and got a job as a welder. He ended up meeting a nice young woman and got married and has a child now.
Oh, good. Good
Yeah.
for him.
And Nicole is more of a mystery. Throughout the trial, she actually defended Chris. She wore his dog tags to court. At one point, she confronted Lore outside of the courtroom, defending her husband. And so at this point, I know she's back in Alaska raising their daughter while Chris serves a life sentence in California. But she has maintained, stayed by him. But the detectives and the prosecutor had actually looked into her as a possible co-conspirator in this murder. And at one point, were looking pretty heavily. So if any new evidence surfaces, there's a good chance that there might be a second trial in this case with Nicole as the defendant.
Shanna, thank you very much. Sean, congratulations on your good work. Shanna's book is called Secrets of a Marine's Wife. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.